Good morning, my legitimates. Today I am doing the Senza tote by KM Designs. This is another free pattern. To be honest, I just cut out the shapes that they had and kind of made it up as I went along. So we have, I've got fabric on the outside. I've put bag feet in this one. So it does have bag feet. It comes with these like two bigger pockets so you can fit your drink bottle. And I've just put a single zipper pocket in the back, but you can actually put two. It's also got like a nice vinyl layer at the top of this bag. There is no closure though, so it's just like a good chuck everything in and off you go. Market tote or a picnic bag. I have designed this in thought of Australia Day picnics. So that's why I've picked the fabric. It screamed at me when I saw the pattern. So if you want to see how to make this, please stay tuned. Rightio, let's get started. So I have already pre-ironed everything, which makes my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to start with the handles, which are super long and in here somewhere. There they are. Alright, so we're doing half and half handles. So half vinyl. This is actually what the pattern says for a change. So this is I'm only putting a single zipper pocket in this. So the only hardware is a zipper pocket. And if you want to add bag feet, which I think I will, because I'm feeling bag feet today. So I'm just putting a piece of double-sided tape down the center of the vinyl. I can eyeball the center pretty well. It took me a lot of practice to do it, but you get there in the end. Once you've drawn a line enough in the middle, you can pretty much eyeball it. So I use 1/2 inch tape for this, because even if I'm a little bit out, it's still wide enough to catch everything. And then I just squish both sides into the center and then push them down. This is what I have personally found to ultimately be quicker once you get used to this whole pinch and push. This used to take me ages. So if you go and watch some of my earlier videos, you'll watch me and this takes way longer. But this, now that I've trained myself to do this, this is the quickest way I've found. So you just pinch to the center and then push straight down. You find there's very little kind of stretching or anything this way, which is awesome. So now that I've done that, I'm going to take one of my fabrics bits. Now I'm not tucking in the end because we don't see the end of these. They get tucked into the bag. So I'm going to go up to a size 4 stitch length, and then I'm just going to stitch and back stitch to hold it. And then you just line this up in the center and we're going to stitch. Now, I did have a hard time tossing up between red and blue vinyl. I ultimately settled on red though. So this color is called Volcano. So it's the deeper red that I have. And this fabric that I'm using is a drill. It's cotton drill. It's a little bit thicker than like normal cotton thread. Even though I don't need to, I'm going to stitch across the bottom just so it gets me to the other side. And then we're going to stitch down the other way. So I'm top stitching 1/8 of an inch from the blue on top. Now if you're using soft or stretchy vinyl, don't go back this way. Cut off and go in the same direction to avoid any kind of twisting. But I know this vinyl will be fine. That's the only reason I'm doing it like this. And I'm going to back stitch at the end. And clearly I can't maths, but that's okay. So that's one strap, and then it's got the red on the back. Now we're going to do the second one. I do have a sneaking suspicion that I will run out of bobbin thread. There wasn't a lot on this bobbin, but I did pre-wind a second one. We'll see if we need it. So again, I'm just pinching and then flattening it down. If you're using vinyl that's quite thick, My recommendation is to get like a scoring card or a piece of plastic, and then kind of just go over it to help it make it flatter. This one doesn't really need it, but you can do it. And also, if it's not sticking to your tape, if you score it down, or you can rub it on the edge of the table like this, and it helps to score the edge and stick it to the tape. So if you're having trouble, they are some good solutions. So I'm just smoothing it down like that. And then we're going to grab this, line it up on the edge like so. Line it up. If you can't line this up, like I am, put another piece of double-sided tape down and stick it in place. It does help sometimes for some people. It'll be in the middle, so you still won't even... I'm not actually stitching over the double-sided tape. It's to the inside of where I'm sewing, which gives me no chance of gumming up my needle, which is lovely. Tuck it under. Oh, see, I ran out of bobbin thread. I knew I would. Should have paid more attention. So here's the other one I wound. You could also do a contrasting thread color. So I could have done this whole bag in white. Because then the fabric's mainly blue, all the vinyl's red, and then the stitching's white. That would have looked cool as well, except I didn't think of it until right now. So I'm going to back stitch and then go forward, and that locks all my stitches in, and then run off the edge. Trim off all of those tails and pop them straight in the bin, wherever you store your thread. Some people have like thread jars and then they do craft with it. It's a cool theory, but we all know I'll never actually use it, so I don't keep mine. So there's your second strap all done. Let's move on to the lining. I want to do the lining first, just for something different. So I'm using waterproof canvas, so I didn't have to interface it. Partly because I'm lazy and partly just because. And so then I've also got the top part. I am going to put the vinyl on here like this. So this is my side panel and then my side panel top. I'm going to go back to a joining stitch length, line them up together, stitch and back stitch to lock that in, and then stitch over it like so. And then I'm going to grab the second one. So I've got it so the dots on this are up the top, because that to me makes sense. And I'm just going to chain stitch all of these to join them all together. That's my zipper pocket, so that can wait a minute. So here's my next one. So I'm going to take this and put this at the top, and I'm going to sew all of them and then I'll top stitch them all, because chain sewing is quicker. And this is a good way to chain sew. And if you've never chain sewed before, this is a good bag to learn to chain sew. And then last one, so right sides together. Back stitch. So then I'm going to chop this one and then separate these and trim off those tails so that they don't annoy me later. And then I can top stitch. So I'm going to fold this so that the vinyl sits down flat, And then I'm going to top stitch along the blue fabric. So I'm going to crank it up to a top stitching length just because I can. And I'm top stitching 1/8 of an inch. So that's going to hold the vinyl down and look fabulous. And then I can trim this one off. Again, fold it down and top stitch. And then back stitch, and then grab the next one, and we're going to chain stitch the top stitching. See how quick was that? Much less cutting of tails and the stuff. And back stitch. Now I'll pull it out. Whoa, that was close. I nearly accidentally dropped it then. And then I'm going to keep one of my main panels here. And I'm going to grab my zipper pocket. Now, I just use a Tory pocket. I'm not sure if it's going to fit or not, though. We're about to find out. So you fold it in half with right sides together. Oh, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then I'm going to grab, because I forgot to draw the line, I'm going to grab one of these. They are all too big. That one's too small. They are in here somewhere. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to, so the way I lined this up is I line it up against the markers for the inches, like that. And then I'm going to trace around. This is just a normal pen. All right, so I'm going to fold this in half and trim the center because the center of everything is always quicker. And then there, and then trim the center so that I can line those 2 points up like that. Back to a joining stitch length because we're not top stitching this time. So I'm going to line both of those up like that. And then slide it over and manually stick my needle right in that point. Make sure that it's all nice and even. We're going to stitch and back stitch. And back stitch there. And then spin it all the way around. And just do a jump stitch. So I'm not going to trim that. I'm just going to jump straight over to the other side. Like that. And then I'm going to trim that jump stitch so it doesn't annoy me or get in my way, like so. And then I need some scissors, which apparently I have moved most of them over to my actual cutting table. So I'm going to pinch it in half, make a little snip in the center like that, or roughly the center. And then I'm going to cut as best as my ability in the middle. And then I'm going to triangle out those corners. Now, it doesn't matter if you're not perfectly in the center when you do that middle cut. As long as you're roughly, you don't want to be all the way to one side. You want to eyeball the center. And you want pretty big triangles at the end because the idea is we want them back and we want to be able to catch them when we top stitch. So if you do little like 1/4 inch triangles, it's going to be a lot harder to catch it when you top stitch around. So I'm just going to finger press both of those and then push that through and then fold it. Now, because this is waterproof canvas, I don't need to use an iron. It will actually finger press nice and flat like so. I'm thinking, I don't really know what zipper tape I want to use. Maybe white, just to keep the theme going. White with silver, that'll work. So I'm going to cut some double-sided, not some double-sided tape, some zipper tape. And then I'm just going to melt the edges like that and like that. We need a zipper pull. I am using a Smooth Criminal, just because I think it was what was in the cupboard. I like these though. They're good for when you're not thinking about adding a tassel or anything from your zipper pull. So I'm going to put it roughly in the middle and then lay it so it's going to close to the left. Then just pick this up and place it over the top like so. Which was not very straight, I'll admit. There we go. So you just want to make sure that the zipper is going to catch at both ends. And then I'm going to start in front of the way the zipper closes. So whichever way you choose, you want to go towards where it's going to close. Pivot. Over we go. Pivot. And then when we get back to the zipper pull, I'm going to zip it up completely. And now the zipper pull is never in my way while I'm stitching. I don't have to worry about it. Needle down, pivot. Now I'm just putting one of these in this bag, but you can put another one on the other wall if you so desire. But that's potentially the only hardware you have to use. And you don't even have to make these zipper pockets if you have no zippers and you want to use like a no hardware at all. You could make this a slip pocket with welted slip pocket. Oh, I should do a video on that. Alright, so I'm stitching the sides down, but I'm going to leave the bottom open like I always do. Like that. Apparently I did not cut my zipper tape very well. But that's okay. So that's now your zipper pocket. I like it. White was a good choice. So now I'm going to construct the inside of my bag. So I'm going to take this, and the first thing I want to do is line up where the vinyl meets the waterproof canvas. You want that to be schmicko, because that's going to be very noticeable if you do it wrong. And then you can just add some other clips to hold stuff in place if you want to, but that bit is very important. So then we're going to put it under the needle, stitch, back stitch. Actually, before I go any further, I'm going to grab one of my ribbon tags. I didn't really want to have to undo it, but that's right. So they have little marks where you cut them so that they're always the same size, which is quite clever. And then you just fold it over in half like that. And then the raw edge, I'm just going to tuck it under and it'll catch all up in here. Although I want it a little bit higher, I think. So I'm just going to put my fabric tag in the side here. You can put them wherever. Usually I actually put them in the zipper pocket at the end, but I just thought I'd show you another way to do it. So we're putting it in the side today. These can be custom got from, I get mine from eBay. The guy's somewhere in Melbourne. And he's really, really quick. So now my tag will just stick out the side there like that. It's not too invasive. But it's got my logo, so that's fun. So I'm going to grab another wall and come and do the same thing. So I want to line up the waterproof canvas, and you always want to use at least 2 clips to line that up. 1 clip, it's more likely to slip. And then if you're like me, you can just skip the rest of the clips. It will be fine. Everything works out in the end. So long as that bit lines up, it doesn't really matter about the rest. The rest we can fix. Like if there's too much at the top or too much at the bottom, we can fix that problem. But you want it to kind of flow. See? Flow. It's all about flow. Now, where is my other little one? So here's my other one. So we're just going to make like a big long line. You're going to go big, little, big, little. But again, if you're a beginner, use more clips. It'll make you feel like it's not going to slip on you. And you don't have to concentrate so much on the fabric, just on where you're stitching. So your seam allowance. Pull that out. Always trim your tails as you go. You will find it's way easier. One and two. And then I'm joining the last one to the first one so that we get a space. Line that up and off we go. Voila. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to take some vinyl cutting scissors and I'm going to trim off the excess at the top here, because we're going to want to top stitch this and we don't want it too thick, especially if you're on a domestic machine. This is a very important step. There is now much less bulk at the top, so it will be easier to stitch around. Okay, I can't see my base. I'm going to go and grab my base. I'm going to hit pause and I'm going to grab a drink because my throat's a little bit dry. And then we will insert the base and move on to the outside. Base has been got. Now, because the base is directional, you want to think about how your bag's going to look. So I always put my zipper plate, my zipper pocket on the back wall. So when looking in the bag, this bit here would be the top. So what I want to do is I want to take the top of this and put it there, if that makes sense. So I'm going to fold this in half to find the centers, because the center is always just the easiest. You can measure it, but this is quicker. I want to do the center of both sides so I don't have to think about it later. And then I want the top to go on the pocket side. So I'm going to grab that, clip it together. I'm actually not sure if this is the way the bag's constructed, but this is the way we're going to do it. There's a few different ways to build the same bag. So I'm going to clip it along that edge, and then I'm going to stitch from this seam to that seam. So you'll notice that there is a little bit of an overhang that is meant to be there, that is totally normal. So I'm going to start at that seam. Now I can feel it. I can also kind of eyeball it, but if you can't, flip it and sew it from the other way, or you can just make a little mark. That would work as well. And then we're going to stop at the other end. So you're not sewing all the way to the edge of this fabric, you're sewing to here. And then just to make this more flexible for in a minute, I'm going to take my snips and just put a little kind of diagonal cut up to, but not over those stitches. And that is going to help it be more flexible when we've got to put our short sides in. So I will also need the center of this side. Like so. Normally I wouldn't use my snips, but waterproof canvas is quite thin, but it is durable, which is why it's still good for aligning. So I'm going to clip the center with the center, and then you can add as many clips as you need. I'm just going to add probably one there and one at the other end. Me and lining are friends. It doesn't fight me as much as an outer piece does, so that's good. Right, so again, we're going to start at that seam and then sew down and along to the other seam. So I always do the longer sides first. It's just how I like to operate. You can do the shorter ones first, but I do find it easier to do the long ones. So again, I'm just going to take the snips and just snip out a little bit. So I don't want to get too close to the stitches, but this, now that I'm going to flick this edge, because I've now trimmed that, that sits a lot nicer. And I won't need pins or anything to stitch it. And then we just stitch overlap. You can go all the way to the end with this one, it won't matter. trim off all of those tails so that they are out of the way. And then we're going to do this end as well. So to here, stitch and back stitch, over to the other bit, back stitch again, trim, and then I'm just going to trim off the excess at the corners so that the bag sits nicer when we turn it through. Like that. And then push it into the bin. It's always handy to have the bin at the end of your table, so I can just push it off and it works out fine. So now I'm going to turn this right sides out. So I'm actually going to have my logo on this twice because I've done a little fabric tag on the inside and I have also got my logo on the base. So whatever, they'll really know it was me. So we're just going to open up the zipper pocket. Uh-oh. Oh no. I accidentally caught it when I was stitching the base. That's my bad. So I'm going to unpick that because I need to get into there. Oh, we won't be able to turn the bag through. We'll have to leave a different hole in the top and I don't want to do that. It's never as neat. So as much as I hate unpicking, this will be ultimately better off than leaving a gap in the top and turning it through, because trying to turn under that top so it's perfectly even and glorious will be difficult. So don't do that. Take the time, unpick the silly pocket. And by unpick, you'll just notice I'm trimming the stitches. I don't use a quick unpick. I don't believe in them. I have wrecked more projects with quick unpicks than anything ever. I don't like them, I won't use them. So instead I use snips. Right, so now it's open. Lucky I checked that. So that is now the inside of the bag complete. So we can pop that aside and move on to our outside. So we're going to start with our side pockets because the outside's only, what, 7 pieces? So this is a side pocket. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold it in half with wrong sides together and I'm going to top stitch along the fold. And I'm still going to back stitch. I'm a sucker for a back stitch. It means things won't move on me. So we're going to do the same to this one. So we're going to chain stitch them. For at least this part. Now the idea is I just want like a nice big open pocket. So the way I'm going to achieve this is I'm going to take my side, so it's got the foam and everything, and I'm going to line up the corner and I'm going to stitch just down this side. And this is like, I guess, a quicker, lazier way than measuring. You can judge me for that later. I don't mind. So again, this one. So I'm going to line it up. I'm going to do the same edge. Like that. Then I'm going to cut this one off. And I'm going to bring this edge over. And I'm going to stitch that edge down. And you'll be like, what are you doing? Just bear with me. This way, you don't have to measure anything. So I'm going to take this one, trim it off, and I'm chain stitching as well. So I'm saving a lot of time and thread and just everything. So I'm going to line that up there. Now you can do this next part in 2 ways, so I will show you both ways depending on the look that you want for your pockets. I will take this out now. So what we want to do is we need to bring this down. So you can either go all the way in and squish it down like that so that the middle's got the little pleat and like that, or you can have it so that the middle goes down and have the pleats join on the outside. Now that's a little bit more fiddly, but it can be done. like that. So you can have it as a little pleat like that, or you can have it the other way. I personally like it the other way, so I'm just going to push it so it joins together like that, and then squish that down flat. And then I'm going to top stitch it down. And then the pocket is on. No actual measuring required. Which makes for a quicker sew, really. Obviously that took me a minute because I was explaining it, but, you know, no measuring, just done. So same again. So we just flatten it to the center and then squish it flat. Like that. Pocket achieved. And so now with that done, so these pockets come out nice and big, you get a nice little base going, everyone's happy. So I'm going to grab my exteriors, which slightly melted together when they were cooling. If your fabric's directional, obviously the top goes against the top here. So I'm just going to line this up. Now I will be using clips for this. It's got foam, it's bulky, it's likely to move on me, so I do want some clips. Probably not that many, but some nonetheless. About that many. 4 is good. You can use more, you can use less, you can use none. It's entirely up to you. So now we're going to stitch and back stitch, because we always back stitch. You notice I'm going slower? That is because it is thicker. And I do not feel like snapping a needle because I was in a rush. One side on. Right, so that's gonna look awesome. Let's grab another side. So again, this is not directional, so I don't have to think about that at all, which is lovely. But if your fabric is directional, make sure the top's at the top. Takes you an extra like 4 seconds to think about it. Sometimes it's worth it. Right, next is doing the same thing. So now we're doing the same as the interior, where we just have to join it all together and then put the base in. Then we attach our handles, top stitch around, turn it through, top stitch again, and we're done. Not that many more steps, really. I like to count down from how many steps are left. Makes me very happy when I've only got 1 or 2. It also stops me from stalling doing the sewing. So sometimes I get sidetracked very easily, which if you're in my Facebook group, you would know that. So by counting down the steps, the closer I am to finishing, the more likely I am to finish. Instead of getting up and, you know, having a snack or doing the washing or whatever. So the counting down really does work for me. I was just making sure then that I put the pocket on the right way because I had a sneaking suspicion I didn't actually consciously check that. Alright, so I've gone big, little, big, little. Now we're going to come back round and join big to little, or little to big, whichever way you want to look at that. And then we're going to do some more seam allowance trimming because this is quite bulky. It's got 2 lots of foam, some vinyl, some fabric, some interfacing. Like there's a lot going on here. So we want to trim down the bulk. And I really do slow down. This machine is not designed to do thick stuff. However, I make it do it. So long as you go slower, it survives apparently. So we are going to trim this end like that. And we're going to do this one. So we're going to do both ends. Because we have to attach the base. And the top outside is also vinyl. So I'm just going to trim all of this off. Because it'll make it easier to stitch in about 5 minutes. Why 5 minutes? Because we're going to install bag feet first. It's easier to do it when it's not attached to the bag. So, in the bin, that's all of the seam allowance down. Now, it might not seem like a big deal to do it, but it will make a huge difference. Oh, don't fall on the floor. Stop it. Right, bag feet, my base. I've got both my presses here. So this one does holes and the other one pushes down rivets. All right, pen, let's use that one. And a ruler to flip it over. I am going to go, I always just kind of eyeball it, to be totally honest. There's no official rule as to where I put my feet. I'm thinking 3 inches from the edge, the short edge. Like that. So I'm going to just draw a line. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to go 1.5 in from the other edge. Now I'm telling you these measurements because I'm literally making them up as I go. And so now where the 4 intersections are where the feet go. So I'm going to just take the hole punch, line it up, punch 1, 2. I'm doing this the wrong way. I should have twisted it. This is very awkward the way I'm doing this. Reaching across myself. Okay. Get rid of that. I'm going to push these through from the bottom. I'm going to do all 4. Because the hole's tight enough, I'm not worried that they're going to fall out. Push them all through, flip it over, then take my feet and push them until you feel them click or you hear them. You can kind of hear them. And then we're just going to, you always put dome on top and squish them down. Now you don't want to squish them as hard as humanly possible. You just want to squish them until you feel it give in. That's enough. Squish them too much, you'll flatten out your domed feet and then they're not domed anymore. So, bag feet. We're going to take our exterior and we're going to find the center because, you know, I love a good center. You'll notice this time I am using knot snips. That is because it is foam and it's thick. And if you've done an all vinyl exterior, that'll be thicker again. So, this one specifically doesn't have a front or a back, so I don't need to think about which way I want this in. I can just put it in. If you've done an embroidery design, or if you've got like a special panel, this would actually be a good bag for a panel, now that I think about it. I just don't own any. But if you've got a panel, so you want to think about it, when you're looking at the bag, let's say the panel's here. When you lift it up, you want the logo to face and be able to read the right way. So just think about that if you've got a right and wrong way of a bag. So I'm going to start again at that seam. I'm going to stitch and backstitch. I'm just kind of peeling this back so that I can see what I'm sewing. This bit's not so thick yet. It's the short edges that are going to be the thickest and most annoying part of today, which is why we're doing them last. So I'm going to grab the base and pull it over to the opposite side. It's always good to find the center. I do find it much easier to construct things when they're that way. So now we've done the opposite side. Like I said, you can do the short sides first, but I don't like it. You can do it though. It's not technically wrong. Right, so because this is thick, get all the way into that corner, back stitch. I just ran out of bobbin with like 3 stitches to go. Not even kidding. 3 stitches to go. So I'm going to hit pause and I'll do up another bobbin and then we can finish off the bag. Right. Done. We now have a bobbin. So I'm going to go back a few stitches and I'm going to stitch and back stitch, and that locks in the old stitches and then finish off that edge. Really wasn't very many extras, but that's fine. Now, snips. are not going to cut it this time around. So I'm going to get my big, thick scissors. And I'm just going to make a snip. Now, because it's thick, I don't know if I can show you this without it falling off the table. I actually put the scissors on there, and then I use, hold on, you can't see. And then I use my hands, and I push the tip of the scissors to help it snip. But in doing so, you need to make sure that you're not going to accidentally snip through the stitches, because there's no coming back from that. If you snip them like that, you can't stop midway, because you're just pushing all of your pressure. More tails. Okay, short sides. Should just line up for you. Now, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they want to be stubborn. But generally speaking, it should just line up for you. So I'm going to clip both of them. Or pin both of them. Clip, snip. I don't know. Clip or pin both of them. Although if you've got vinyl, don't ever use pins with vinyl. It's very hard to get rid of the holes. It can be done, but it takes a lot of manipulating and melting. And I don't enjoy doing it. So try to avoid it where possible. So I'm going to stitch, and then I'm just going to lift up and go back through the first little stitches, because this is a new bobbin and there's a good chance that the back stitching is going to mess it up, because my bobbin doesn't love me. Was it yesterday's video or last week's video? It just kept kind of bird's nesting. Trim off your tails. Always with the tails, guys. Get rid of them. They're in the way. You don't need them. Needle down. Stitch a few. Back. Stitch a few more. Nice and slow. Slow and steady is going to win this race, I promise. If I did this at 100 miles an hour, I probably would have snapped the needle by now. Not in that much of a hurry. Okay, bag is now standing by itself. A bit weird, but that's alright. Final construction. So we're going to need our exterior, which I'm going to put in my lap so you can see, the handles, and your lining. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put right sides together. So I want this on the top. So I'm going to put it right sides together. And we also probably need to measure how far in we want them. I'm going to go, I think I'm just going to go 2 inches from the corner. Have them nice and wide. For no other reason other than I can. So then I'm going to smooth this out to make sure there's no twists. Bring it over this side. Again with the ruler. I really wasn't that far out, hey. 2 inches from that edge. Always put 2 clips when you're trying to attach something like this. 1 clip, it'll swivel and move. 2 clips makes it much more sturdy. So in, shove the ruler in the corner. 2 clips. Sorry, that was my stomach. Apparently it doesn't like what I ate. Oh, look at that. I actually put that perfectly in line. How's that for a fluke? I love it. All right, handles are now in. So, because there's no front and back to the, oh, well, I suppose there is now, as the thing's in. This is the front. So I'm going to put this as the back. So I'm going to put the zipper side on this side, like that. And then I'm going to line up a corner. We're going to need a lot of clips for this. I'm going to line up the corner and pin 1 on each side, and then come to the other. So I do the short sides first for this, because they're quicker, right? And then 1 in the middle. Then I'm going to go to the opposite end and do the same thing. So I'm going to line up that corner. And because I've chopped out all of that seam allowance, that's going to be an easy sew. More clips. And then 1 in the middle. And then I'm going to add that into there. And I'm just going to work my way along with some clips. You can do this however you want. Right. Flip around, other side. Add it into the handle clips. Now it looks a little bit buckled, like it doesn't quite fit. It'll be fine. So I don't know if you can see, but these are not sitting like perfectly flush. Honestly, it's not going to matter. So long as you've done the correct seam allowance and everything as you've been sewing, it will be fine. Now, top stitching. Oh, well, not top stitching. Joining. So I'm just gonna start kind of in the middle. I don't want to start on a handle. That feels like a terrible idea. So I've started just offside it, so towards the center. I'm gonna keep dragging this bag around so that I can get all the way around. It is a 3D object and I will be treating it as such. And I just keep pulling it around. At least I'm not worried anymore about my bobbin running out because I just refilled it. So I don't even have to think about that. I'm also going to trim off those threads since they were annoying me. They were at eye level and I could see them. If you were wondering how they annoyed me, that's how. Bring it up and over. Up and over. And backstitch. Ta-da! Now before we turn it through, I want to trim out some of the bulk at those corners. So I'm just going to kind of cut like a U or a V or however you can, because we still have to top stitch this, or at least I want to top stitch it, and I don't want that much bulk wrecking my top stitching. So we just chop it out. If it's not there, it can't wreck anything. Now for the tricky bit, we are going to get this whole bag through that tiny little hole. Now, if you struggle, what you can do is you can unpick some of your base and then just backstitch where you've stopped picking so it won't come undone any further and turn it through there. I'm going to see if I can get this all through the pole though. So I'm going to pick a corner and I'm going to push on it. I always push with my knuckles because I've got the fake nails. I don't want to hurt myself. You can push however you like, but just, you know. So turn that corner inside out, and then I'm going to slowly start kind of crumpling the bag into a cylinder kind of a shape to get it to go through the hole. Now I'm not sure if this is actually going to fit now that I've started doing this, but I'm still going to try because you never know. You know what? I've already decided we're not going to do that. So I'm going to come over to this opposite side. And I'm actually going to start, I'm just going to backstitch, probably like 2 inches from the corner. And then same with this end, because you never want to have to go all the way into a corner. It's tricky and you just don't want to do it. And always leave a long enough tail so you don't unthread your machine like I just did. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a back stitch and then I'm going to unpick everything the other side of it. And then I'm going to just turn the bag through here because ultimately that's going to be easier. And the bag's got too much foam to fit through the hole. And I don't want to play that game. Oops. Done. So that's me unpicked. That's a much bigger hole, which should allow us to get the bag through a lot easier. So I'm just kind of folding the lining over itself to get the bag through, like that. Voila. Now I'm going to put my hand inside and push the base out. Oh, I really like this bag. Now I don't want to sell it. It could be my Australia Day picnic bag. Right, anyway, I'll worry about that later. So that's all now in. I'm not going to push the lining in. I'm going to stick my hand through the zipper pocket and grab that lining because now we're going to stitch it back up. So I'm just going to go to where I did the back stitching and do more back stitching. And then I can just hold them and line them up. They should fit perfectly because it was just stitched together. So make sure that you're not accidentally stretching something. Right, and then I'm going to grab the zipper pocket and I'm going to tuck in those edges like that. And then stitch this shut. Snip. So tails off, tuck the zipper pocket back in, zip it up, and then I'm going to fold all of this over so that the edge is right on the edge, and I'm going to clip it just so when I'm going around I don't have to fiddle with it as much. It will still need a little bit of fiddling with, but not as much. Now I didn't go back over those things because I'm about to top stitch it. And hopefully that'll be enough. This thread is insanely strong. I'm actually not worried that it's going to break. I did that in yesterday's video. I went and zigzagged back and forth over it. That's for people whose machines can't handle this type of thread. I'm genuinely not worried that these handles will fall off. You'd have to fill this entire thing with rocks and then swing it roughly for these handles to come off. I actually can't take this thread in my hand and snap it. So. But if you are using a lesser thread, go and zigzag back and forth like yesterday's video. To help seal that off in the pelican tote, for anyone that doesn't know what yesterday's video was. I do a little zigzag motion. You could also put, if you leave more hanging over, you could also put a rivet in it as well, if that's something that interests you. These don't really go in far enough to warrant a rivet. I would have had to have had more of an overhang, but that is something that you could do as well. All of these things are afterthoughts, but that's okay. Right, so I'm back up to my decorative stitch length of 4. I've gone with 4 today for whatever reason. So I'm going to start over here on a short edge, and I'm going to sew. Now, depending on your machine will depend on what seam allowance you're going to want to do right now. If you've got a good machine that will go through lots of layers, you can just do 1/8 of an inch. If your machine is not as sturdy as that, you want to do 1/4 of an inch. That extra 1/8 of an inch actually allows it to be less thick where you're sewing. So I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch today. It's not much of a difference. And I know normally I do 1/8 of an inch. So I'm doing 1/4 just to show you that it's not a huge deal if you do a little bit more. So again, I'm still just bringing this bag around. I didn't backstitch at the start because we're going all the way around. And because it's a top stitching, I don't want it to be too bulky when I get back to the start. So I'm doing the full 1/4 inch. Do it. And it is contrasting on the back, so if I didn't want a contrasting thread, I could have put blue in the bobbin. That is something you can do if that's what you want. I don't mind the contrast. Besides, I've got the contrast on the handle, so it'll kind of all match in. But again, I could have put, you know, blue in the top for the handles and had red in the bobbin. Alright, so I'm nearly back to the start. I know I can't show you. So I'm going to get back to the start. I'm going to go through 2 stitches and then I'm going to backstitch for 2 stitches. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to come over and carefully trim the tails. And you can barely see where I backstitched. It's actually right here. That's my backstitching in there. So I didn't backstitch at the start. I went all the way around, went through the first couple of holes, and then I backstitched. And you can barely see that that's a problem. So then I'm just going to push this down. And your tote bag is done. Now, this one, you could put a magnet if you want to, but I don't like what it does to the shape of the bag. So I would actually keep this one as like a really good fun tote. This would be a good beach bag tote if you go to the swimming or something, because you could put your drink bottle or alcoholic beverage in the side, towels and stuff in there. It is a good size for that. But anyway, there you go, guys. That is the Senza bag. Thank you for tuning in, and there will be another video tomorrow. Bye, guys.